What's up, everyone? It's Ryan, and I'm here with Ian, aka StraitOuttaBoston, aka the King of Boston.
Yo, what's up, guys?
And today we are recording the NL East podcast. So we're gonna jump right into this. We're gonna start talking about the team. So first up is the Washington Nationals, and the Nationals had a decent offseason as they traded top prospect Alex Meyer over to the Twins for a Denard Span. So they signed Dan Herron for, I think he's gonna be their fourth or fifth pitcher this year. They also signed Rafael Soriano as their closer, which is a really good move. And then they traded Mike Morse in a three-team deal where they received pitching prospect A.J. Cole. So obviously last season they had a really good season. They went like, I think 98. I think they won 98 games.
Yep.
And but they had an early exit as they lost in Game 5 to the Cardinals, who are the postseason pests of the past 3 years. So what do you think about this team?
I really like what the Washington Nationals did in the offseason. Obviously, a team that proved itself last year to be a World Series contender, despite the fact that they did lose in the first round of the playoffs. Baseball, a lot of the times, because there's only 3 rounds in the playoffs, teams will exit in the first round, even though they did have championship potential. I really like what the team did this offseason. Obviously, probably their biggest move was acquiring Denard Span. They traded a top pitching prospect, 2011 first-round pick, Alex Meyer, for him. However, this was kind of balanced out by trading Mike Morse in a 3-team deal in which they received A.J. Cole. So in one move, they traded one pitcher for an outfielder, and in the other move, they traded kind of a utility player who'd been playing outfield for the last couple of years / first base for another pitching prospect. So in my opinion, those moves kind of balance out. The Nationals had a need for a speedy, top-of-the-lineup type of center fielder. The ownership group for the Nationals, that's been their dream type of position for, ever since they took over the team in 2005 or whatever. They've always tried to find this speedy type, kind of leadoff hitter, stolen base type of guy center fielder, and it seems like they finally found it in Denard Span. And then Mike Morse at that point just became a luxury after re-signing Adam LaRoche. So very smart way to trade him. They restyled that loaded pitching rotation, even though Cole is a prospect. He's, 2, 3, 4 years away from even touching spring training. So you won't be hearing his name for a little bit, but that's just assuming he pans out. But still, you've just added even more depth to the future of this rotation, which already includes young studs such as Steven Strasburg and Gio Gonzalez and Jordan Zimmermann. Jordan Zimmermann's one of the forgotten guys in this rotation. He had a sub-3 ERA last year, and he's just a forgotten guy because he had 2 Cy Young candidates pitching ahead of him last year. This is a very solid team. They addressed their bullpen this offseason also by acquiring Rafael Soriano. I really like that. Clippard, Storin, Soriano. It's going to be a very, very good bullpen.
That's a good
that
7,
point.
8, 9.
Yeah, and then throw in other middle relief guys like Henry Rodriguez and Zach Duke and Craig Stammen. That's a very good bullpen to go with a very good rotation and a very good lineup. What do you think of them?
I think this team is really good all around, especially the outfield with Bryce Harper, who's still got a lot of room to grow. Obviously, he had a decent season last year. He won the Rookie of the Year. Obviously, he's only going to be getting better. He's pretty much like the LeBron James of MLB. And you got the speedy Denard Span, which I don't know if I'd rather have Span or Michael Bourne in center field because, before the offseason, they were talking about trying to get Michael Bourne in Washington, but that didn't work. So instead, they went out and got Denard Span, which is a move I like. They only gave up one pitching prospect, so not that bad. And then Jason Worth, who's coming off that broken wrist, and he had a good season after that wrist injury, right? I think didn't he?
Yeah,
hit 300?
he hit 300, and that was the big thing. After he signed that huge contract in Washington, he had a very bad 2011, which was his first year. Which was his first year in Washington. Everyone kind of thought, oh, they overpaid this guy. He's not going to pan out like they wanted him to. And the big thing was his average drop from, I think he was like a 270, 280 hitter down to like 240, 250. And in the short 82 games that he played last year, although the power was not there, he did hit 300. And we know he has potential to hit 20, 30 home runs. So now that we've seen that the average has kind of dipped back up, I think you can expect good things out of Jason Worth this year. I don't know if he'll ever be the player that he was in Philadelphia, especially in those last few years. But I think he can still be a productive right fielder for this team. Or left fielder.
Yeah, I agree with that. So, yeah, definitely the Phillies missed Jason Worth in their lineup, that's for sure. But yeah, and the infield is great. The corners of Zimmerman and Adam LaRoche, that's awesome. And then you got the middle. Ian Desmond had a great year last year.
Oh yeah.
And like you said, this pitching rotation is just like it's almost like an all-star rotation, honestly.
Yeah, I didn't agree with letting John Landon go. I like him a little bit more than Ross Detweiler. But you're picking corners at that point, so.
Yeah, and I mean they went on and signed Dan Herron as their. I mean he's gonna be their fifth starter, so I mean
Yeah,
that's a good all
fifth
around
or
bullpen.
fourth.
Everyone's above average. It says Ross Detwiler's fourth for some reason.
Yeah, I'm looking at that depth chart too. I don't agree with that.
And then, like you said, the Rafael Soriano signing is a great signing, great closer for them. Filling in for Mariano Rivera last year, did really well. And then Drew Stone's going to move over to the setup position, or the eighth inning guy, along with Tyler Clippard. So that's a good 7, 8, 9 combination, and you combine that with, like you said, the rest of the relievers. This team has no limits, honestly. I mean, this team can only get better from last year. I mean, if you win 98 games and you don't have Steven Strasburg for September, then I don't see how you don't improve. Besides, losing Edwin Jackson,
hmm
which I don't think we put that in. So
No, I mean whatever. It's Edwin Jackson.
I like Edwin Jackson.
I like him too. He was one of my favorite players when he was having that really good year and what was it when he was in Detroit. But I mean, come on, he was good last year. He was solid at a good beginning of the year, but that's not. I mean, Dan Herron. I take Dan Herron over Edwin Jackson any day.
Whatever. All right, so let's go to our predictions, and I'll let you go first.
All right, so I have the Nationals winning straight at 100 games this year, 162. Like you said, there's only room for improvement here. I don't see them having, any worse of a year. It's not like they had guys who played out of their minds last year who won't be able to duplicate that, like you could possibly say about the Oakland A's, the Baltimore Orioles. The Nationals have talent. You could kind of see this coming over the last couple of years. People forget they did win 81 games 2011. It's not like they had some crazy 30-win improvement last year. They improved, obviously, by 17 wins, which is incredible. But, a lot of people had expected them to kind of perform at least as a potential playoff team last year, and they obviously overexceeded that. But it's not like they had guys going crazy, hitting 350 when they were career 270 hitters or something like that. So this team will only get better, like you said, Strasburg in September now, and will also pitch in the postseason, which is huge for them. I think that if Strasburg had pitched in the postseason last year, they could have possibly made a World Series run, but that's besides the point. What do you think of them?
Well, I think this team is definitely primed for a World Series run this year. I especially the acquisition of Span in center field, and then you have Rafael Soriano in the bullpen. Those are some great signings, and it makes up for the loss of Edwin Jackson with Dan Herron. So I have this game slated at 101 wins, 101-61. I think this team can only get better. So.
All right, I think we'll move on now to the Atlanta Braves. This is a team that had a very big offseason. Their biggest move being trading Martin Prado, Randall Delgado, Nick Ahmed, Zeke Spruill, and Brandon Drury for Justin Upton and Chris Johnson. They also signed Justin Upton's brother, B.J. Upton. They traded Tommy Hanson and Jordan Walden. I'll get to that in a sec, but that's a move that was trading, a thing. They traded Tommy Hanson when they kind of have a stacked rotation at this point to improve their bullpen, which was something that they lacked a little bit towards the end of last year. They did lose Michael Bourne, however, that's kind of made up for by the B.J. Upton signing. They also will have Brandon Beachy at full strength hopefully this year. I think you said he was leading the NL in ERA.
Oh, yeah, he was leading the NL in ERA. I think he's supposed to come back in July or August.
Yeah, so, if everything works out, he'll be back by playoff time. We'll be back for that August-September run. And, hopefully he will be back at full strength. So I really like what this team did in the offseason, similar to the Nationals. Had a very good year last year. They won 94 games, I believe. And I expect them to improve on that. I think trading Martin Prado for Justin Upton and Chris Johnson, a lot of people, I like Upton. Upton obviously has a ton of potential. Certainly has a higher ceiling than Martin Prado. I think Martin Prado is the more solid player at this point. Justin Upton did get off to a slow start last year, but he did improve as the year went on, and I'm sure he'll have a better season than Prado. I have a special thing for 300 hitters, and Prado is just so versatile. So they will certainly have to kind of make up for that loss, but I think that Upton and Chris Johnson will. I think they'll more than make up for the Prado loss. And then Chris Johnson, I believe, is going to platoon with one other player who I can't remember at this point. But I think it's Ben Francisco or Juan Francisco to replace Chipper Jones. That's another loss. Jones didn't have the best season of his career last year, obviously, but he still was a solid hitter, and I'm sure they'll miss him. They'll certainly miss his veteran leadership in the clubhouse. But B.J. Upton, Michael Bourne, that's another situation where I think I like Bourne more as a player, but I think Upton might have a higher ceiling. Upton came up, he had a ton of potential And it really started to show in that 2008 campaign towards the end of it when it looked like he finally started to get healthy after he did tear his labrum, I believe, in his shoulder towards the beginning of the year. Kind of came out in that ALCS against the Red Sox and really showed out. And I think that maybe he's a guy that's kind of had motivational problems in the past. He doesn't always try his hardest. Maybe his brother can kind of help him out with that. Obviously the Upton and Upton chemistry thing is going to be something that no one can really predict what's going to happen with that. I can't remember the last time we've ever really seen a thing like that where, two, brothers that grew up together and were so close in age. I don't think they're not twins, are they?
No.
No, okay. But they're so close in age, and it's like, I don't think we've ever seen that before in baseball, quite frankly. At least players that are that caliber. We might have seen two bench players play together before, but two starting, all-star caliber outfielders, and I'll put BJ Upton as all-star caliber because, like I said, he does have a ton of potential. But that'll be interesting to see. And then Brandon Beachy will come back and really help out that stacked rotation that the Atlanta Braves will sport this year. I believe it'll include Tim Hudson,
Medlin.
Tim Hudson, Chris Medlin, Paul Maholm, Mike Minor, Julio Teheran, and Brandon Beachy when he comes back. But that's going to be a really stacked rotation. I really like this team. What do you think about them?
Well, I think what you always say is the inconsistency factor, and that could plague the Braves this year. BJ Upton and Justin Upton, while they have been stars at some point in their career, obviously the past 2 years they've kind of been inconsistent. You said Jason Hayward, he was inconsistent as well.
Hayward was, what was he? Great in 2011, terrible 2012. Terrible 2011. No. He had a great 2010. Which is his rookie year. I think he won Rookie of the Year that year. He had a terrible 2011, and he started to slightly improve last year. Probably isn't going to be that top prospect that he was when he came up 3 years ago. But, there certainly showed signs of improvement. He had 20-plus home runs. I think he had 270 and won the Gold Glove.
Didn't he have 30 stolen bases?
Something like that. He's a five-tool player. He won the Gold Glove last year, too, in right field. So, certainly has the potential to be, he had worlds of potential when he came up 2 or 3 years ago. So.
Yeah, and this outfield is very, very star-studded, and I always like to see teams that have these three outfielders that are all stars, sort of like the Toronto Blue Jays. They have something like this as well. I think that's always a good thing for the team. It definitely shows that they're going to be pretty good, I think. And like you said, BJ Upton and Justin Upton playing next to each other, whether or not that helps Justin Upton out with his chemistry or not chemistry, but taking plays off and just not really trying his hardest. Maybe that'll make him actually try this year. This kid in 2010, he almost won the MVP. Pretty much led the Diamondbacks to the playoffs that
2011.
year. 2011. No, it's
that was 2011.
You sure?
Yeah, I'm positive.
Yeah, it was okay. It was 2011.
I'm positive.
I always get that mixed up. But yeah, he had a great 2011. Like I said, almost won MVP this year. So this infield as well, it's pretty solid. Chris Johnson and Juan Francisco platooning over at third base. Freddie Freeman, who still has a lot of room to grow. He's going to be a great power hitter one day. And Brian McCann, who's coming off an injury. I don't know how he'll do this year. I forget what he did. Didn't he hurt his knee or something like that?
I can't remember, but he certainly had a down year last year.
And yeah, definitely. And like you said with the rotation, Chris Medlin, who came out of nowhere last year, and he's finally that a stud. He's going to be a stud this year, I think. I honestly think he is going to have a great year.
Yeah, I don't see a reason why he would, kind of. I can see maybe he comes back to reality a little bit, but he obviously has good stuff. It's not like it's, it's not 100% luck when you win, 9 straight games with a sub-2 ERA as a starting pitcher in the NL East like that. So there's certainly, he obviously has talent. He obviously has good stuff, and I think he's certainly going to be a player to remember for a while.
Yep, and like you said with the bullpen, they have a great bullpen this year with Venters, Walden, Kimbrel, Eric O'Flaherty. This is gonna be a different team to watch, and the only thing that they're really lacking right now, I'd say, is probably at the left side of their infield with third base, obviously losing the consistency of Chipper Jones and his veteran leadership, and then trading away Prado. I don't know how bad that's gonna affect him, but I think definitely signing Justin Upton and BJ Upton is gonna cancel that out. I think
in terms of production in your lineup, Upton and Upton will probably at least, if not more than make up for the Bourne and Prado combo.
Yep. So yeah, I mean, losing Bourne as well. That's a little bit of a question. You lose a lot of speed in him. I don't know how fast BJ. Yeah, BJ Upton's pretty
He's
quick,
pretty
right?
fast. He's a quick guy. He's a 5-tool player when he came up.
Yeah. So I mean, he's definitely not Michael Bourne speed, but he'll definitely make up for that a little bit. So we'll see with this team. I mean, this team has a lot of potential. They can definitely win this division. I would say that they could win this division.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think it's a team with a ton of potential, with a lot of guys that you mentioned who've been inconsistent a little bit throughout their careers. A couple of them are coming off down years, such as Brian McCann or Dan Uggla. But if you look at, 7 or 8 ninths of this lineup, you are looking at guys who have had stellar seasons before and who we know can play at star potential. I mean, we know this team has star potential, which is why I think this team could either win 100 games or they could honestly win like 85 games. And I think that I'm not going to put them anywhere below 90 just because their rotation is a very solid rotation. When Maholm came over last year, he was good. Minor's been solid. Teheran is a top prospect, but when Beachy comes back to combine with Hudson, and I can't remember who I'm forgetting right now. I feel like an idiot. Yeah, Medlin. Yeah, I always forget him because it's just like he came out of nowhere. But yeah, when you combine, three, if you get Beachy, Medlin, and Hudson in the playoffs, plus, throwing Paul Maholm or Mike Minor, kind of depending on who's hot at that point, that's a stacked playoff rotation.
I'd agree with that. So, and yeah, interesting note, Chris Medlin, I think he's rated 98 overall on MLB 13. So, all right, so let's get to our predictions for this team. So I'll go first in this one, and I have the Atlanta Braves at 97-65. That's a 3-game improvement from last year. I don't know if they can catch the Nationals in this division. I mean, I think the Nationals have much better pitching than them, even though Atlanta Braves pitching is definitely above average. So, but I don't think they're going to beat the Nationals for this division, but they're going to get that first wild card spot definitely.
Yeah, I agree with you. I have them 1 game above, 98-64. I certainly think they can win this division. I just don't think they will. I have confidence in the Nationals being one of the better teams in baseball, if not the best team in baseball this year. But I think I think the Braves are going to be right there. I think they're going to get that first wild card spot, as you mentioned, by a good 7 or 8 games. And they're going to have a very good year. As like I said, as to winning the division, they could. I don't think they will. But high expectations and high hopes for Braves fans this year. I think they have a potential World Series team if they can get their guys to play up to their caliber.
Yep. So we're gonna move on to the third place in the division last year, in the Philadelphia Phillies. They had an interesting offseason as well because their first move was trading two prospects, Salvatore Bonilla and Josh Lindblom, over to Texas for Michael Young. They also traded a questionable move, in my opinion, Trevor May and Vance Worley for Ben Revere. They also signed Delman Young. They also signed John Lannon, who apparently you like a lot. And then they
I love John Lannon. He's so solid. He's the definition of solid.
Oh, man. And then for their bullpen, they signed Mike Adams. He's been overshadowed the past few years for whatever reason. And Mike Adams is still one of the best relievers in all of baseball, in my opinion. He's got that deadly cutter, just like Mariano Rivera. So they came off a pretty disappointing 2012. They went
86, I think?
81 and 81.
81. Oh, okay.
So this isn't that same team that they were 2 years ago when they had Roy Halladay, Roy Oswalt, Cole Hamels, and Cliff Lee, and then they also had Vance Worley. That's one of the best rotations of
and when they had J.A. Happ for that half season that he was 7-1 before they dumped him for Oswalt, that was pretty solid.
Yeah, so I mean, this is a shell of their former self. They're getting older. Chase Utley is not the same player anymore. You have Delman Young playing right field. That's kind of questionable. But the thing I don't like is when they traded Trevor May for Ben Revere. I mean, I guess if you only gave up Trevor May, I'd be all right with that. But you give up Vance Worley, I don't think he had a bad season last year, but he's still pretty young.
Yeah, he definitely regressed a bit last year. But he's another guy that, even though he's probably going to be considered a bit of a bust and a guy who has regressed a little bit, he's still, I always say about this type of guys that they've showed potential in the past, and it's not like they're just never going to, relive to that. I mean, Worley didn't have his best year last year. He had a 4.20 ERA, but the year before that he was 11-3 with a 3.01. And throughout his entire, minor league career, he showed the potential to be a star pitcher in Major League Baseball.
Yep. So I mean, this rotation is it's getting in its final moments. I mean, you still have Cole Hamels, who's still, he might win the Cy Young this year, I think. But Cliff Lee had a pretty bad year last year. I mean, he didn't win his first game until like July.
Yeah.
Roy Halladay had a lot of injuries last year. He's getting into the twilight of his career. He's 35, so he's got like one or two more seasons left in him. But I mean, Michael Young over at third base. I don't know if that solves your third base problem. Anyways, it sure stops the any. I mean, Michael Young's a solid player, but I don't know if his 270 average is gonna be enough for them. Still J-Roll over the shortstop, still speedy, still swiping a whole bunch of bases, but he's getting
Still
older as well.
guaranteeing playoff spots.
I don't know about that.
Yeah.
But,
No, I was thinking back to when he guaranteed playoff spots like 3 years in a row, back in like 06 through 08. It's funny.
yeah, I mean this whole infield. I mean, you had the whole right side's coming off of two major injuries last year, and when Utley and Howard came back, they made that almost made the playoffs for a little bit. I mean, they were like 5 games out in like August, and like everyone's like, oh shit, here comes the Phillies, but they tailed off at the end. They finished 81-81. So this infield is pretty old. I mean, Utley is like 33, 34. Rollins is like 35. Howard's 35. I don't know. Howard's 33, and Michael Young's like, I don't know how old Michael Young is.
Ryan Howard seriously 33? I feel like he just came up.
Yeah, he's only 33.
The last like 6 years of baseball just fly by.
So yeah, I mean, in Carlos Ruiz, they're going to be losing him for the first 50 games because he got suspended for peds. So, and then Jonathan Papelbon. I'm sure you like Jonathan Papelbon, right?
Oh yeah, man, favorite player.
That $12.5 million a year definitely deserved that.
Worth it.
So I don't know. This team's very questionable.
Yeah, I agree. It's a team that, like you said, they have shipped off some of their core from kind of the teams 3 to 5 years ago that made playoff runs, that they went to 2 World Series, they won one and lost the other to the Yankees. They've kind of shipped away some of that core. They've maintained Cole Hamels throughout it. They've added Cliff Lee and Roy Halladay, and they've also they've kept Utley and Howard throughout that. But I think I already said that. Anyway, but what they did dump off Shane Victorino and Hunter Pence for basically nothing. The only mentionable guy they got in either of those deals was Tommy Joseph, who was a former kind of top prospect but did regress a little bit. And it's a team that's kind of tried to retool in a way. People would always what people always say about the Los Angeles Lakers is that they never rebuild; they always just retool. The Phillies are sort of trying to do that. They traded one former top prospect in Vance Worley and another top prospect in Trevor May for Ben Revere, who's one of the better probably one of the best defensive outfielders in baseball. But the question is, I mean, he's good, but he's not great. He's not a great player. Same thing with Delman Young. He's a solid player. I don't know how he's going to fare playing right field. He's got a cannon for an arm, but he's not that solid of a defender. And this whole team's defense is going to be kind of questionable. I don't put too much emphasis on defense, but when I look at it, you certainly have to think, Howard coming off of that Achilles injury. I don't know how much range he's going to have at first base. Utley's been battered by injuries throughout his career. Rollins still he was one of the better short defending shortstops in Major League Baseball. I'm sure he'll still be fine. And Michael Young has played so many different positions throughout his career. But that's besides the point. Old team. Inconsistent probably. Like you said, though, I like what I saw from them in the second half of the year when they did finish 81-81 after a terrible start. I think they'll kind of carry some of that momentum into the season and improve a little bit. But overall, I don't see an amazing roster on this team. I see a solid team, but I don't really see a team that's going to get a playoff spot out of the NL this year.
Yeah, no, I guess we can go to our prediction now, and I'll go first with that. I had them winning 86 games, do I? No,
you had 91.
What the heck is that? No, I think I might have changed yours accidentally. I have them winning 85 wins. I mean, 85 wins is like a few games out of a playoff spot, but I don't think that this roster can do that. I mean, they have a lot of shells of their former selves players. I mean,
yeah,
Roy
that's
Halladay,
perfect. That's a perfect way of saying it.
Yeah, Roy Halladay. I mean, he's getting into the twilight of my career. Like I said, if he's healthy this year, he'll have a great year. But I mean, I can't say that. I can't say the for some reason. The starting pitching rotation. It's solid at the 1, 2, 3, but after that, Kyle Kendrick. I mean, he's been solid. He's finally guaranteed his first starting spot for like forever. I mean, he's always battling for that number 5 spot and loses. And like you said, John Lannon, who's the
The
Definition
definition
of
of
solid.
solid.
So
4-1 with a 4.1 ERA last year. That's solid. No, I mean I was just like John Laney because he's always forgotten about. But anyway, should I move on to my prediction? I guess.
yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. I have them winning 86 games, 86 and 76. Solid team, improvement over last year. So, certainly they'll put that bad start behind them that they had last year and probably improve a little bit. But the roster overall hasn't gotten that much better. If anything, they kind of lost out with their starting rotation, even though they did get Landon. I think Worley was slightly better, even though statistically Worley was worse than Landon last year. But I think just Worley's younger and he has a little bit more potential than Landon does. You certainly kind of fixed your third base problem with Michael Young, but I'm not gonna. I don't think I would say that Delman Young and Ben Revere are better than Shane Victorino and Hunter Pence. So I don't see this team improving so much or too much, really. I should have said, but Mike Adams all about that bullpen. Maybe Papelbon will rebound a little bit. And
Ooh.
yeah, man, he's so overpaid. It's hilarious. As a Red Sox fan, I love it. And I'm curious to see what they do with a couple of young guys this year, like Dominique Brown. He might finally get a starting spot. He's a former top prospect who just never seems like he can find a spot in this system. And Darren Ruff is a guy who came up late last year, still a very raw player, but godly power. Who is kind of first baseman / corner outfielder. Who knows what he'll do this year. But, like I said, 86 wins and probably missing out in the playoffs.
All right. So our next team is the good old Mets.
Yeah, the New York Mets.
So they had a pretty busy offseason, I think, right?
Yeah, I'd say they had a busy one.
Let's see. They re-signed David Wright, lost Mike Pelfrey. They traded R.A. Dickey for Travis Darnell, John Buck, Noah Syndergaard, and Wilmer Becerra, which is a scope and shot move.
Oh, yeah.
They signed Sean Markham. They lost Jason Bay. That's a big loss. Lost Andres Torres. Lost Chris Young. Lost Scott Harrison. And they traded Jeffrey Marte for Colin Cowgill, who comes over from the Oakland A's, right?
Yeah.
Oakland A's. So, this team, obviously, I don't think they're going to be contending for a playoff spot this year or probably not next year. But what do you think about their offseason?
I really think they had a good offseason. I like the fact that they re-signed David Wright to a long-term deal. That's a case where you have a guy who could have bolted for more money. He could have gone, probably not more money, but he could have bolted to go to a playoff team. He's obviously played in the playoffs before on some of those Mets teams from the later 2000s, but he's a guy that's fine with kind of being in this rebuilding process for the Mets. He believes in the team. He believes in the organization. And I think that's the type of player that you want to lock up into a long-term deal because he's been consistent throughout his career. Who knows if he's ever going to get the 20, 30 home run power back, but he's a top, average type hitter, good, solid 3-hole hitter for any lineup in baseball. And aside from maybe the Angels. But anyway, I also really like the R.A. Dickey trade. That was a case where you had an old guy who was not going to be a part of the team when this team does get back to a kind of contending spot. Even with him last year, they only won 70-something games, I believe.
74, I think.
Yeah, 74 games. So, it's not like R.A. Dickey was going to make your team significantly better by the time that you do start to think about playoffs again, because this is a team that's 3 or 4 years away from even getting to the playoffs. And they acquired blue-chip prospects like Travis d'Arnaud, Noah Syndergaard, and I believe they got Justin Nicolino out of that deal too. And then they also get a solid catcher in John Buck, which they've had catching problems for forever now. So anyway, I really like that trade. D'Arnaud is a top catching prospect. Those you don't find catchers who are 300 these days anymore. It's a hard thing to find, and D'Arnaud has that potential. So I think that's a great move. You also get Syndergaard and Nicolino. Those guys are going to pair up with Matt Harvey and Zach Wheeler, that's one of the best young pitching. That's one of the best core forward group of pitching prospects. Although you can't really consider Harvey a prospect anymore, but just young pitchers that are going to anchor this rotation in 5 years. Nicolino and Syndergaard a little bit further away.
Nicolino's with the Marlins, I think.
Oh, really? Oh, you know what?
Yeah.
I was thinking. Never mind. I was thinking of another deal the Blue Jays did. But yeah, not Nicolino. So I apologize on that. But Syndergaard, you pair with a Harvey and Wheeler. That's 3 guys that you're gonna anchor your rotation in 5 years. Syndergaard still, his ETAs 2014, 2015. Wheeler's gonna be coming up later this year, hopefully, and Harvey, who looked really well last year at the end of the year. He's going to start out probably as the number 2 pitcher in that rotation, maybe number 3, depending on what they do with Sean Markham. But Markham is another guy that I like. I thought that was a good signing. He's a solid player, kind of underrated. Injury-riddled year last year, but consistently 3-ish ERA. And Jason Bay, whatever. A couple other guys, Andres Torres, Chris Young, Scott Hairston. Not big deals. I like Scott Hairston, but not enough that I'm going to make a big deal out of them not getting him. Colin Cowgill's a guy that I've heard good things about so far in spring training. Former Oakland A. I've heard that he's just had a good spring training so far, really swinging the bat well. Who knows if he can be something in New York. Sometimes it could just be a case of a guy with a change of scenery that finally starts to put it all together. Who knows? But I obviously this team's not going anywhere this year. I don't think there's any debate about that. What I do think is that this team has a bright future ahead of them. Like I said, one of the hardest positions to acquire prospects at in catcher. They've almost solved that completely with Travis d'Arnaud. If he pans out, that's great for them. One of the best pitching, how do I want to word this? Pitching, like, just one of the best group of pitching prospects in baseball, quite frankly.
Oh.
And, I'm in love with Harvey. I think Wheeler's a stud. I think Syndergaard's a stud. And I think this team is just going to excel off of its pitching in the coming years. And then, they'll eventually start to have to address some of their hitting. Hopefully, if Ike Davis can become a little bit more consistent, he can be, star first baseman. He certainly has that type of potential. David Wright's there for the long haul. And at that point, you got to start building around the rest of that. But what do you think of this team? Yo.
You there?
Yeah. What do you think of this team?
Yeah, you just cut out.
Oh.
Yeah. All right, anyways, what I think about this team, obviously, like you said, they're not going to go very far this year. But, it's a very good thing that they signed David Wright to a long contract. I think it's always good to see guys who actually want to stay in a city and actually play for that team. So that's good for them. Johan Santana, I don't know what they're going to do with him. I don't think you can really trade him for anyone unless he, for whatever reason, he's doing well this year. But
they're going to have to
sure
eat a bunch of that contract.
The year on the DL. So I don't know. I mean, this team's it's going to be interesting in a few years once Zach Wheeler and Travis d'Arnaud are playing full time, and Noah Syndergaard as well. They have a lot of prospects in their farm system right now, so I mean that's good for them, and hopefully they'll be doing well in a few years.
Yeah, Sandy Alderson's done a really good job restocking that farm system ever since he took over a couple years back. He's really done a good job.
Yep. So you want to go to our predictions now?
Yep. And yeah, you're right. Nicolino's on the Marlins. I apologize for that. I was stupid on my part. I have the Mets winning 75 games this year, 75 and 87. They're probably not going to win that many games, but a lot of people have them as a 60-win ball club. I just think that this team, I don't know. I just, I don't just see the Mets being a 61 team this year. I think they have the potential to play 500 ball, quite honestly. And I hope Harvey has a good year. I hope Santana has a good year. And Markham, if Markham can stay healthy and Santana can just be somewhat of what he was at the beginning of last year. You pair that with Harvey, that's a solid top 3 in the rotation. If Harvey can kind of keep doing what he's been doing over the last few years, so I think this team's about a 71 ball club. A lot of people don't have them there, but I just have a feeling that the Mets are better than a 61 ball club. That's really all I have to say about that.
My prediction for the Mets, I have them at 69 and 93. Like I said, they're a few years away from actually maybe turning a winning season here soon. So we'll see about them. I mean, it's going to be interesting to watch Zach Wheeler and Travis d'Arnaud come up this year. That's going to be interesting. Maybe Zach Wheeler will have an awesome first major league start just like Harvey did last year.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Well, he struck out like 12 or 10 or something like that.
12.
So it's gonna be to see this team try to progress in the future. And like you said, they have a couple of good prospects, but whether or not they can address the rest of the roster with hitting and whatnot via free agency or whatnot, we'll see about that. So yeah, 69-93 for the Mets.
All right, so I think we'll move on to the Miami Marlins team. I'm doing a franchise this year in MLB 13. That's a shameless plug right there. So the Marlins, probably one of the bigger off seasons in baseball. Not really one to remember for Marlins fans, but they pretty much dumped away their core of their team that they signed last year in last year's offseason. They traded Hanley Ramirez mid-season last year. That was kind of a sign that they were giving up on this, what was originally a 3 to 5 year plan. They gave up through it 2 months in. And this time they traded Jose Reyes, Josh Johnson, Mark Burley, Emilio Bonifacio, and John Buck for Jeff Mathis, Adene Hechavarria, Henderson Alvarez, Yunel Escobar, Jake Marisnik, Anthony Descalfani, and Justin Nicolino. They also traded Yunel Escobar for Derek Dietrich, another prospect from the Tampa Bay Rays. They dumped Heath Bell in a 3-team deal from which they acquired Jordy Cabrera, shortstop from the Oakland A's, another prospect. They fired Ozzie Guillen and hired Mike Redmond. I like Mike Redmond. I have high hopes for him. They signed Juan Pierre, signed John Maine, claimed Scott Maine, John Maine's brother, off of waivers from Toronto. They signed Placido Polanco, and they signed Chad Qualls. So the Marlins are headed to complete and utter mediocrity this year. There's no doubt about that. They have, outside of Giancarlo Stanton, this is not a major league roster. Ruggiano was a good signing last year. He kind of had a good year, which no one really expected. Nolasco is honestly the only respectable pitcher on this rotation at this point. It's hard to call him respectable. He's been inconsistent throughout his career. As for the rest of the roster, it really isn't much to say. I like their farm system. I like Hechavarria, even though, he's it seems like he's regressed a little bit when he came up last year late for the Blue Jays late in the year. I saw him play in person. He was, he certainly looked like he wasn't quite ready for Major League Baseball yet, but he's a fast guy, good defensively, and a lot of people have high hopes for him. Jake Marisnick, blue chip center field prospect, and Justin Nicolino, a good starting pitching prospect. You pair him with Jose Fernandez, you have a little bit of a base there for the future of your rotation. So, I like what this team has done in terms of, I don't know if I really agree with the whole salary dump thing. I think you've almost killed baseball in the Miami market at this point. It's going to be hard to ever regain the energy that you had at the beginning of last season. But I certainly think that in terms of building a solid baseball team, Johnson was probably going to go after this year, headed towards free agency. Burley hadn't worked out. And Jose Reyes, he had a good year last year, but, if you dump Burley and Johnson, there's no place for Reyes on your team at that point. So they did clear a whole bunch of salary, and they did get some good guys, some good prospects back. There's a slight hope for this team just because, they do have some good youth in that farm system, and we'll have to see what they do with it in the coming years. The Marlins have been a team that's consistently built its cores through their farm system. So I have high hopes for a few of their guys, but what do you think about this team?
Yeah, just like you said, this team doesn't have really a major league roster this year. But this future that they have in Christian Yelich, Jose Fernandez, Jake Marisnick, Justin Nicolino, Hechavarria, Andrew Heaney. I mean, this team could be good in like 4 or 5 years, assuming that they still have Giancarlo Stanton. Now, when the recording that we had failed, I asked you this: Would you trade Giancarlo Stanton for prospects?
I would not do it just yet. I think. Now, I said this the last time we recorded this, as you mentioned. We kind of had a mishap with the recording last time we tried to do this, but I said this last time. I'll say it again. I think that you got to wait on Stanton. I know he's unhappy. I know that he doesn't want to play baseball in Miami at this point. He's just unhappy with the fact that he went from. I mean, he had good chemistry with Jose and Hanley and Johnson, and I mean the team had decent chemistry last year. It was a problem with, Ozzie Guillen being their manager. He kind of disrupted that clubhouse a little bit, and they just weren't playing up to their potential. And then obviously the Lorias completely blowing away the team because all they care about is making money off of the Marlins, not actually producing a good baseball team. But that's besides the point. So I think you got to wait on Stanton. I think they got to wait until he's closer to that free agency type of point, kind of where David Price is with the Rays at this point in time. And I think at that point, then you can look to trade him. But for now, he's the type of guy that's only going to get better. His average improved last year. His power numbers, I'm pretty sure they stayed around the same, but that's he's already got ridiculous 40 home run type power. Like I said, his average went up from like 250 to 290 last year, so he's the potential guy that could hit 300 and still hit 40 home runs. You're going to get a lot back if you trade for him in 2 years. If you kind of just wait on him, let him develop a little bit, kind of ride out as much as you can, because like I said before, if you trade away Stanton, why are people going to come out and watch that ball club? I mean, there's no reason to outside of Giancarlo Stanton. You're almost going to completely kill off baseball in that southeastern Florida market. So I think that they got to keep Stanton for now, readdress it in a year or two, and just try to save whatever you can out of your fan base in Miami.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, unless they would have got blown away from some type of offer, which what I said in the last one, I said if like maybe the Mariners would have offered them something like Taijuan Walker and James Paxton and Nick Franklin for Giancarlo Stanton, I think I would have took that if I were the Marlins. I mean, but like you said, this Marlins ownership group seems like all they care about is making money and making huge stadiums in Miami. So, this team's not going to be very good this season. They're going to, well, I don't know. Yeah, I don't think they're going to compete with the #1 draft pick for next year with the Astros. But
they'll probably be second.
Yeah, they'll probably be second, and it might be a little bit closer than you think. So, this team isn't really a major league ball club. It looks like this might be a AAA roster.
Something like
So, I mean, yeah, the future is bright. Well, I don't know if the future is bright, but it's
they
getting
certainly have
brighter.
some promising players in that farm
It's
system.
opening up. So yeah, I don't know if I agree with the salary dump either. I mean, Jose Reyes and Burley and Johnson. I mean, you could have at least tried a little bit longer with them, but obviously, I guess they just didn't want to.
I
They just
think
wanted to see.
at the point when they gave up Hanley, it was almost inevitable that something like this was going to happen.
Yeah, I don't know why they do that. I mean, you still have Jose Reyes under control for a little while. Why not keep him on your team and at least try to do something with him and see if you can hold out with him in time long enough to get those prospects like Yelich and Fernandez and all of those guys up. I don't really understand that, but I mean, I don't know what they're trying to do with the ownership and what they're trying to do with the roster right now. So I'll let them do that. But the pitching in the future is going to be decent for them with Jose Fernandez and Jacob Turner and those type of guys. But
Yeah,
besides
Turner's
that,
still really young.
yeah, and he's supposed to be starting this year for their major league team. So
That's good.
we're gonna see about them.
All right, so I think it's time to move on to our predictions. I'll go first. I have this team winning 57 games with 105 losses. Like I said, they'll probably be the second or third worst team in baseball, depending on how the Rockies do. And I think it's kind of unanimous that the Astros are going to be the worst, except for that one guy that thinks the Astros are going to win 70 games. But anyway, yeah, I mean, they're headed towards mediocrity. This is not a major league ball club outside of Giancarlo Stanton. Stanton alone is worth like 5-6 wins, but quite frankly, there's not much to this team's prediction. I mean, you look at the ball club on paper. At that point, there's not much else to say.
Yeah, I agree. I have them 2 wins better than you though. I put them at 59 and 103.
Ooh, 59.
Shit. Still in that triple digit.
Look out,
loss
Colorado.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, with Giancarlo Stanton, this team hovers around 60 wins, I guess. But if they would have traded Giancarlo Stanton, this team might be heading to like 40 wins. So, Giancarlo Stanton's the only reason that this team is still even a major league team, in my opinion. So, I mean, yeah, it's all about the future for this team, and we'll see how they do in a couple of years.
All right, I think that pretty much wraps up this episode of the podcast. This was episode 4, still 3 to go. Next week we'll do in the NL Centro. Do you have any closing thoughts, Ryan?
I just want to say that the division race this division is going to be good, especially in the last few weeks, seeing who can get the division lead and avoid that the playoff round that they'll have to go through. Again, Atlanta had that awesome season last year, and then out of nowhere they lost that heartbreaking game to the Cardinals.
Yeah, but they were 6 games ahead of the Cardinals, but that's the cool thing about the playoff, the wild card playoff. It really puts an emphasis on attempting to win your division this year. It's not a given that the team with the better record is going to win the wild card game.
Yeah, honestly, I think that they should move that series to 3 games instead of just 1. I don't know if I agree with only having 1 game and like the team who just plays better that day kind of wins the.
I agree that that's certainly up for debate in terms of what's right or not. But I think that it's good that it puts emphasis on people trying to win their division. I think that makes baseball better. I mean, teams in the past have been content with getting a wild card spot because, as we've seen, wild card teams in the past have had such success getting into the World Series. I think 2003 through 2005 were all wild card winning World Series teams, and at that point, there's almost no reason to go for a division crown. I mean, obviously you get home field advantage for the first round possibly, and you get a little bit of a higher seed which can help you out. But it's like teams have been content in the past with just taking that wild card spot.
Yep. So yeah, that's gonna do it for the NL East. Thanks for watching, guys.
Yeah, that question's up for a whole nother podcast. But anyway, yeah. Any other thoughts?
Nope.
All right, so that's pretty much going to wrap it up. Let us know what you thought of our predictions in the comments section below. And that's pretty much going to wrap it up. So I thank you guys for watching. Hope you did enjoy. So I'm out. Peace.
We'll see you guys later.